Okay, this is just going to be a video about importing an SVG file into Blender, just based off a question that was posed on Facebook. And it just so happened I've done this for creating a guitar effects pedal. So first things first, obviously make sure you've got SVG Import enabled in your add-ons. Just come down to SVG Import and select your relevant item, and then I just press A to highlight everything and then dot to zoom into it. Actually, let me turn the screencast buttons on. Right, so here's the files. Here's, as you can see, this particular one has pulled in each of these items as a separate curve. And if I have a look at the items, I can see they're quite small. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale these all by 10, then zoom them out, just because Blender does prefer things to be of a reasonable size when you're working. It can be a bit awkward if you're working in really tiny details, so I tend to scale up by 10 and then just scale the result afterwards if I have to. So here are all the various curves. For going to edit mode, you can see how they're constructed using Beziers. So if I'm going to convert these to a mesh, what I'll do is I'll obviously first copy them. So I'll Shift D, make a copy, send it to a new collection, call it backup, then I'll just disable that so I don't get it. And then go into my curve settings, and you can, if you wanted to, you could extrude here like that. Again, zoom in on that and add a bevel. Again, you can see it's not that simple. Yeah, so you put 002 to get a nice bevel. Now if that's all you want to do, if you just want to make them that big, then you could do that with each individual one, or you could try joining them and doing it all. Do it all to that, join it to that, so they all do the same thing, and join these and do a similar thing, and give it a 0.002. There we go. So, and that could be done if that's all you're after. But if you want to do a bit more with them, then I actually don't use these at all. And what I'll do is I'll convert these to a mesh, but before I do, I whack this up to somewhere like 32 to get a nice sort of detail when I convert it to a mesh. And to convert it to a mesh, I just do Control A and Visual Geometry to mesh, and they are now meshes. Let me just change this material so it's a bit more visible. I'm not bothering with the nodes yet. That's, as you can see, these are a bit of a mess. So next thing I'll do is I will merge by distance, just to get rid of any really close points. And as you can see, that got rid of 662 vertices on that one. I'm going to edit on this one, merge by distance there, and that's removed, and again nearly 400. So, and that still gives you tons of detail. Then the next thing, I'll select everything and I'll do a limited dissolve. but a limited dissolve at 0.1 of an angle, 0.1 degree, so it's not really doing a huge amount, it's just tidying up the mesh. You notice it more on this. If you look at the wireframe on that, it's quite a mess. If I do a limited dissolve at 0.1, then it's much cleaner. Then what I'll do is I'll tidy things up, like these edges here aren't very nice, so I'll just select those two, merge at last, which I have assigned to a hotkey of 0, and if I want like these two, I'll select them both, those edges, subdivide, and that gives me GG to slide, gives me a nice edge there. Then I press F to turn that into 1, and what I'd really probably personally prefer is to have the other cut up here. Select them to J. So now that E's got a nice thing, do something similar on the B. So again, select that, join it, select that, join it, select those three, F to make it one polygon. Do the same, something similar on the G. Now you can select 2 points and join, and that creates an edge between them, or if you want you can use knife, K, and just make sure you connect to 2 points and hit return. Same thing really. Select those 3, press F, that's now got a clean edge. Same thing here, we do the same thing, again I can K, return, select that, join, face. So I'll just power save, back this up. Power save's useful, it's a free add-on, and it's very easy, and you press it once to save it wherever you've chosen your preferences, then you can just hit it as often as you like, and it'll increment as you go. So as I can make a stage and then I hit that again, you see it's incremented to 2, so you don't lose the version you were previously working on. So anyway, here's our, if you like, initial version. So following that, what I'll do is again make a duplicate of these just on the x-axis. Then I'll start to apply limited dissolve again, but with a higher angle. So if I, for example, do limited dissolve and we zoom in on this and I start to crunch that up, if I crunch that up really high, you can see you can get a really low poly version of the text. I never go that high, sort of like 5 I think is more than enough. So I'd probably start off at sort of 1.25 for a high mesh. I'd call that high version, go to 2.5 for a medium one, and say 5 for a low, maybe 8 for a really low mesh. So I'd do the same on that one. Select it, limited dissolve, 8 degrees. Right, now having done that, as you can see, these now can look a bit scrappy. So the tool I've started to use recently, which is really useful, is the Looptools. Again, that's an add-on, but it's built in, and if you don't automatically enable it, you really should. It's super useful. So what you could do is you can click that point there. In this particular instance, control click round to there, edit, Looptools. Now space, and you see how it's made that much tidier. Do the same thing on the inner one. space. Same thing here, space. And you can do it on a corner as well. So like this corner here, you space it and it just honours it really well. So you do make sure you're getting the loop you want by control clicking stages. Space, space. And it's just a bit of repetitive work. Most of this sort of thing tends to be. It's not that it's difficult, it's just you just got to get into the groove. So again, space. Now what you can do here, if you want to, I would select those two, J, J. Then how many points have I got here? I've got 10 points there. We've only got 9 there. Right, I want an extra point. So I'm going to do Control R, stick an extra point there. Now I'll do a space again. And then what I can do, I can select that, Control T to triple it, and then Alt J to turn it into quads. And you get a nice quad base corner if you want to do that. Don't have to, but you'd certainly want to fix these sort of things. You don't want edges like that, because when you start beveling, they are going to cause you a headache. So I'd just join them to make that a face. Make that a face, so that's not going to overshoot when it bevels. And again, you just go back into here and you do a similar sort of thing on all the faces. So I just go around here, space that, and it just makes it tidier, makes the font look a little smoother when you're working. As I say, it's a tad laborious, but and I don't tend to do like a full circle. You could in this instance, but for things like this I'll tend to do it in semicircles. So you get the idea. I won't do all the others, but again, like I say, even this you can space it and just tidy it out, because it just helps when it comes to your bevels and your smoothing in general. It just looks a bit better if it's nicely spaced. So it's just, and as you can see by the speed I'm working at now, it's repetitive but it's quick. So long as you're hitting the right points. You see there how it really tidied that up. There'll be a similar thing here on the J. You see you've got really odd spacing, and that just tidies it up so much nicer. I always sort of draw a point of doing the spacing where you've got blatant sort of changes in direction, because you don't want to risk messing things up otherwise. And you see how that's straightened that out. So we'll call that quits for now. And then you can either go in, add a solidify modifier, and I would shade auto smooth if you have that. If not, you just shade smooth, go in here, go to your normals and make that about 30 or 35 degrees, and that'll give you a nice sort of look. And then if you wanted, you could add a bevel. I set it to 1 initially because that gives me the overlamp. Clamp overlamp is off that, so that shows you. So 0.02, It's far too much. 0.0005. And make that 8. So I'll probably make that 3. Now bear in mind, if I then size this up and then apply the scale, I will need to factor in the change in the bevel size. So at the moment it's 0.00003. So I'm just going to select these. I'm going to select that, Control L and copy modifiers. Now you see that, you can see the bevel there. That doesn't like that bevel, because of the reason it doesn't like it is that is a really tight connection. So if I turn on wireframe overlays and I turn that on, you're basically getting a huge crossover there. So if I divided that by 4, you could get away with that. Maybe times that by 1.5 and times it by 1.5 again. So I'm going to make that a 2, and we're not too bad there. And then I can turn the wireframe off. But as you can see, it's not perfect, and this particular model, because we've gone so low with the points, then it looks a bit scrappy. But what you can do is you can subdivide that and again do the same thing, go around and space, and you've got a slightly less jagged result for that particular object. And you could do that again if you wanted to. So, or you could just go in, do a Control R, add in a loop, because it's only a point, it only puts a point in. But we can give ourselves, say, another 6 points there, then do the same thing. Now those extra 6 points will be spread out across the whole curve, and it looks much, much smoother. And then if you wanted to, you could make that a mesh, but you could then drill this into a thing. I'm just adding some loop cuts here to make sure that there's a connecting edge when I do the Boolean. I could select that, and then Control minus, select that, Control minus. And there you see, that's now been stapled into there. But because it's the Boolean hasn't been applied, then there's actually nothing to stop me going in and making changes. Again, like I said, for example, this one here, I can do a Control R here, ramp it up, give myself several points, space them, do the same on the other one. Here we actually got a bevel going on because of the angle, and it's picked up a bevel. So again, Control R, I'll add a few points, space. Now you can see that unwanted bevel's gone because we've got more geometry, so it's not as sharp. And And this again, you could add a bevel to, and once again you'd have to watch for, you can see you're getting crossing vertices there. I'm using hard ops here to pull these things up. So you can see here you've got some issues with that corner there. We've got crossover. Even at point 2 we've got a crossover. Even at point 1. So I would tend to, again there, I would go into here and look at this E. Turn off space that, turn that back on, and you could see that the bevel now isn't as much of an issue. So I could, let's try taking that up to 2. We're okay. Take it up to 5. Still okay. So you can see the benefit there of applying that spacing procedure. So there you go. That's a pretty sort of detailed show of how I'd go about something like this. And in this particular instance, I'll just apply them. What I actually did for this was, and again here I'd do a limited dissolve on these as well, just get rid of unwanted faces. Just going to show you basically how I ended up doing the pad for my pedal. Sometimes the loop doesn't work, you've just got to go around manually and do it. There you go. And that's pretty much what I did using this exact font, except the difference is I didn't make it an indent, I made it a raise by using a union instead of a difference. But hopefully that's been of use.